Hi everyone and welcome back to Rachel's Enchanting Cakes. As promised, a brand new tutorial, but this time featuring two brand new molds from Marvellous Molds. On the base tier, I have used the Garden Gate Onlay mold. I show you everything in detail in this tutorial, and you will find all of these molds in the description below this YouTube video to their official website. The second tier, I have used both the Garden Gate and the Fluted Simpress mould in order to create the heart. You can see that repeated on that beautiful top tier with both the Fluted Simpress and also the Garden Gate Onlay. Very, very easy to use, but so effective. I do think you're going to enjoy this one, guys. Thank you all for your amazing support. I do have some more new content coming very soon, and I hope I've helped you again today. Happy baking, guys, and I'll be back soon with more new, completely free content. Start by rolling out 1.5 kg of black fondant and place it directly over your 10-inch round 8-inch deep cake. For the purpose of this tutorial, I am using a cake dummy which has already been covered in cooled down boiled water. Negotiate the pleats and cut off all excess fondant and then smooth out until you get the perfect smooth finish on your cake. For the Garden Gate pattern, I need to get my modelling paste to the right thickness. For this, I am using a pasta machine. So start by rolling out your modelling paste so it's relatively thin. You then want to place this through the pasta machine first of all on number 1, which is the thickest setting. Then I place it through twice on number 2, and finally I place it through the pasta machine on number 3. Start by dusting down the Garden Gate silicone onlay with some icing sugar. You will find a link to this product and their official website in the description below this YouTube video. Once you have done this, you simply place over your modelling paste and use your fingers to push it into the actual onlay. Then taking your rolling pin, simply go over this. You will have the correct thickness because you have used a pasta machine, and the parts that you do not need will come away with ease. Finally, using my Dresden tool, I take away all the parts that are on the inside that we do not want as part of the pattern. So to add this beautiful pattern to my cake, I actually steam mine, but you can add a small amount of edible glue directly to the modelling paste. These panels are designed to simply fit together on even-sized cakes. But what I absolutely love about this one, even though the design is only 4 inches deep, as you can see here, they still work on deeper cakes. So on this 8-inch cake, I am able just to double up the design. When I say an even-sized cake, they are designed to fit your 4-inch, 6-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch cakes, etc. Goes on very, very easily, and I then simply paint it with Regency Gold and a small amount of alcohol, and this is the finished result. For the second tier, I have rolled out 1 kilogram of fondant in total. I have covered the cake dummy, which is an 8-inch deep, 8-inch round cake dummy, with some cooled down boiled water. Simply drape your fondant directly over the cake dummy. I find this much easier by using the rolling pin to support the fondant. Start by cutting off any excess just to prevent your fondant from actually ripping, especially if you're using a sharp-edged cake dummy. You then want to take your time negotiating the pleats and using some cake smoothers, simply smooth this out. Using Faye Carl's Regency Gold, simply add 2 parts of this dust to a small pot to 1 part alcohol. You want a milk-like texture in order to airbrush the cake dummy. Simply apply your edible paint directly to an airbrush and go over the cake dummy several times. I find it best to go over it once, place it in an oven with the oven light on, Allow the paint to set and then keep going over it until you have got rid of any white patches. For the centre, roll out some black fondant so it's exactly 5mm thick. For this, I use spacers. Taking the new Fluted Simpress mould by Marvellous Moulds, I simply place on an indentation and cut away the excess fondant using a pizza cutter. You want to now take the Simpress mould and place it directly over your fondant. I then use a rolling pin. I roll over the back of the mould first and then over the front, just to pick up all of those lovely indentations. This mould will then simply peel away with ease. I have added some water to the inside of my cake dummy and I simply add one panel at a time. The part that overlaps I then trim off with a sharp knife. I add the panels to the base first and then this gets flipped upside down and I repeat this process for the rest of the cake dummy. All you need to do now is cover up the rim. So I have covered this with very small hearts using a heart plunger cutter, but just look at that beautiful detail inside the actual cake dummy. Using the Garden Gate Onlay, just like we did with the base tier, start by adding some edible glue to the black fondant. You now want to add this directly to a piece of white fondant that is 5mm thick that has been used with the Fluted Simpress in order to get it the correct size. Now simply peel this away and then add this directly to the Fluted Simpress mould. Apply some pressure directly on there and this beautiful pattern will end up coming through. If you use your rolling pin just to get it all even, and when you actually pull this away, look at what it leaves behind. Simply cut out a heart shape and then I choose to paint mine gold, and this is what goes in the centre. As soon as the edible paint is completely set, I simply apply this directly to the centre of the cake dummy, very carefully using some edible glue. In order to cover my top tier, which is a 6-inch round, 8-inch deep dummy, I am using the wrapping round method. So I've rolled out a very long piece of black fondant. I have covered my dummy with some water and then you simply roll it over. This is physically possible with a cake. I have done it before, but you must make sure that your cake is completely refrigerated and all the fillings and the crumb coat has completely set. Once you have done this, you simply then cover the top of the cake, or in my case, the cake dummy, with a thin amount of black fondant, and we are ready to decorate. I am covering this tier with the Fluted Simpress, so I start by rolling my fondant in between 5mm space. Using my Simpress mould as a guide, I now place this over the fondant and then using a pizza cutter, I cut away where the indentations are. I choose to grease my Simpress mould with a small amount of Trex vegetable fat, as I find the fondant comes away an awful lot easier. Simply place the fondant inside and then using a rolling pin, gently roll over to pick up on the detail. For an 8-inch deep, 6-inch round cake, you will need 6 of these panels in total, and they will meet flawlessly from where they start to finish. So just like I did with the base tier, I am steaming the cake and then just applying each panel. These are a lot easier to add because you can physically pick them up and you're not relying on them to actually come out of the mould. Make sure you apply enough steam. If you don't have a steamer, you can use edible glue. I then just cut a heart shape out of the centre whilst the fondant is still soft. I then simply repeated what I did for the middle tier, making a heart, using both the Garden Gate Onlay and the Fluted Simpress. I apply this directly to the cake dummy, where I have cut the heart shape away, and then I start to paint the sections that are yellow with gold. The final finishing touch is just to add a few black hearts using a simple heart plunger cutter, just to cover up where the indentations and the lines actually are. If this was a real cake, I am now going to explain to you how I would stack it for a wedding. So here I have my decorated cake drum, and I have placed an indentation on there, so I have a 10-inch round diameter, just so I know where to place the cake. Now, if this was a real cake instead of a cake dummy, I would have left it in the fridge so that everything, all of the fondant would go lovely and hard, all of the fillings inside would go lovely and hard, and it would have been on a cake board. I would then physically be able to lift it from that baking paper and place it directly onto my cake drum, which would be covered with buttercream, not water, just so it's a bit more sticky, but obviously I'm working with a polystyrene dummy. And you'd be able to do it without risking damaging that fondant. Yes, the cake will sweat. It is only condensation. This is completely normal, and you would do this the morning of the wedding. You would then need to dowel this base tier, not because of the cake dummy, but because of the tier that would be cake that would be going on the top. No matter what, this heart-shaped cake dummy would not be cake. It would always be a cake dummy in order to support everything that is above it and to not collapse. So dowel this tier, place on a small amount of water this time, because remember it's a cake dummy. So the cake dummy will physically stick to the fondant on your real cake, and then this just wants to be placed into a box and put to one side. So you're now at the venue. You have taken the first two tiers that you have added together already at home in the box, and now you just need to add the top tier at the venue, because remember this is all cake, it's top heavy, it's very, very tall, so this is the safest way to do it. Again, this would be on a cake card or cake board. You would place it directly on top with a small amount of buttercream, and then you just need to add a couple of those beautiful hearts.